Leaving London on a commuter train, a British politician finds himself surrounded by people, none of whom are speaking English. He says he feels awkward and uncomfortable. Recently, an American website ran a competition to find America's ugliest accent. Think about the way you speak, the way you pronounce certain words, the expressions that you use. How do you feel when you hear someone speaking differently from you? These tend not to be views about language. These tend to be views about immigration or socioeconomic status or ethnicity. But we can't ignore the fact that these are statements about language. Language prejudice remains a socially acceptable form of discrimination. Language is also what unites us. My interest in language probably started as a child, growing up in a multilingual environment. Perhaps you did too. Maybe you've lived in other countries or learned to speak other languages. For me, it was linguistics that helped change the way I view language and the way I look at the world. Many linguists, like myself, are interested in language structure. We look for patterns, patterns in individual languages and patterns across languages. We try to understand not only how languages are different from each other, but how they are the same, what they share in common. Examining similarities like these leads us to think about language in a more conceptual way. It helps us understand what languages and people share in common, and ultimately, what is at the heart of the human experience. Some people embrace all languages in the ways that linguists do. Others speak strongly against linguistic diversity, or feel that speakers of their shared language are ruining it. What I'd like to explore today is the idea that appreciating similarities across languages leads us to value diversity. Diversity of languages, of dialects, and of people. So what is it about linguistic diversity that makes us feel so uncomfortable? Well, languages can seem vastly different from each other. They sound different, the order of words in a sentence are different, and they express things in different ways. Let's take the expression of time for an example. In English, to express an event in the past, a special form of the verb is used. The man laughed. If we remove ed, the part of laughed that we would call the past tense, speakers of English would typically say that the man laugh is no longer well-formed. Squamish Snechim, the Squamish language, is a Salish language spoken on the west coast of British Columbia. Now, in Squamish, the past tense is not required to express a past event. So this sentence, roughly laugh the man, no past tense, this means the man laughed. Actually, this is ambiguous between a past and present interpretation, so this sentence also means the man is laughing. Differences such as these can make languages unlike our own seem strange. It can even lead to negative judgments about those languages, that they have no grammar, they're inadequate or primitive. But speakers of Squamish and Yucatec Maya and Mandarin, by one count, half the world's languages don't require a past tense. They're not confused about time. Say we add the expression yesterday. Well, then this Squamish sentence, laugh the man yesterday, it can only refer to a past event. So while it may seem as though Squamish is under-expressing the past, speakers are rarely, if ever, unsure of when the event took place. Now let's go back to our English sentence, the man laughed. Notice that when we add yesterday, the sentence still requires the past tense. The man laughed yesterday. In other words, if we say the man laughed yesterday, we wouldn't say the man laughed yesterday, even though we would understand what was intended. So this makes it seem as though English is over-expressing the past. So what, are we overcompensating for something? Would we say that English speakers were inferior because they say more than they need to? Of course not. Even in English, we sometimes don't use the past tense to express a past event. Once we start appreciating that languages share the same concepts, that, for example, all languages express the concept of time and can do so with equal success, well, then we can start to celebrate, even marvel at the diversity of ways in which they do so. Now, what if we weren't comparing languages, but we were comparing different dialects of the same language? So have you figured out which dialect of English I speak? Not only do I pronounce things in certain ways, I also use certain expressions that are different from other dialects. But just for the record, I say about, not aboot. Now, I've been gently teased about the way I speak, but generally, I'm understood. Speakers of some dialects, however, are harshly judged for the way they speak. So keeping with this concept of time, let's look at another example. In so-called standard American English, or mainstream English, if you will, when we say he is happy, well, this can mean he's happy right now, maybe he just ran into an old friend, or that in general, he's a happy person. In African American English, a dialect that has received much negative attention, these two meanings are expressed in different ways. So to express that he's happy right now, we say he happy. But to convey that he is in general a happy person, we say he be happy. African American English and other non-standard varieties of English have often been wrongly considered inferior or degraded versions of the standard. Even worse, people are sometimes labeled uneducated. But if any notion can be expressed in any language and any dialect, if the same meanings can be conveyed and understood by their speakers, well, then all dialects should be revered. And by the way, would we say that Spanish is inferior because it too can express these two meanings of he is happy with two forms of the verb to be? Probably not. How about an example from Montana English? Some Montanans say, my car needs to be washed. Others say, my car needs washed. In what way is one better or more accurate than the other? Both are used by speakers, well, to imply that my car is dirty and that washing it will likely solve the problem. So where does that leave us? Well, if we can start appreciating the fact that languages and dialects share things in common, if we start appreciating that at an abstract level they are expressing the same concepts, we can begin to value diversity. We can begin to celebrate the numerous ways in which languages and dialects express those concepts. And if we value linguistic diversity, well, then we're more likely to understand the importance of preserving and revitalizing endangered languages. We're less likely to negatively judge dialect variation, and we may also be less resistant to language change. I told you earlier that linguistics changed the way that I view the world. I propose to you that next time you hear somebody speaking a language other than your own, or you hear somebody speaking your language but in a different way, take a moment to think about the fact that they're expressing the same concepts that you do. By doing so, you are reflecting on what it means to be human. Shared experience on a shared planet, shared among each other in a multitude of ways. That's an idea we should all be spreading. Thank you.